first day on the job, President Trump signed an executive order, the U.S. government only recognizing two genders, male, female. They're unchangeable. If elected as prime minister, is that something that you're going to kind of walk in line with, or what are your feelings on that executive order?
Well, I don't know. Do you have any other genders that you'd like to name?
Me personally?
Yes.
I'm just asking more so if you're in line with what he is saying. Do you agree with what he's saying? Is that something that you would be lockstep with if elected as prime minister?
Well, I'm not aware of any other genders than men and women. I mean, if you have any other that you want me to consider, you're welcome to tell me right now.
Well, there's personally, I am a man. As people say, cis man. There are people there who, they say they're gender neutral. Wow. You are a man. Yes. There are people there who say they're gender neutral. Yeah. They say they're gender neutral. They're a trans person. Is that something that you would recognize here? Whereas in the States, at least with their U.S. government, the way they're seeing it, there's only two.
I'm only aware of two, but I mean, if you come up with another list, then you're welcome to do that. But I'm aware of two. And as far as I'm concerned, we should have a government that just minds its own damn business and leaves people alone.
All we needed in that clip was him eating an apple. Like, look.
I was just going to say, is this going viral as much as that it did?
He wasn't expecting, and you should, Pierre to come back right on your ass, and he wasn't ready for it. But I'll also say that, like, saying you're unaware of other genders, obviously we're not talking about sex here. He's talking about intersex, gender fluid, trans people, all the other people that even I don't know the whole list. I understand the whole thing is a bit confusing. But for him to say I'm unaware, it kind of seems like he's disregarding millions of people that live in this country.
Like, Cheryl, could you imagine if you were still a journalist and it was like you weren't prepared like that?
Did you feel Phil Perkins' pain, or were you kind of yelling at the TV? Me neither.
Like, come on. Like, that you have nothing. Like, surely you anticipated some kind of response from him, whether it's a question to a question. Like, he is a guy who knows how to deal with the media. Obviously, he's going to have something to say. He looked unprepared for any answer. For the record, I'm a man. Yeah. I think the question he was trying to get at is, will you protect people who want to identify as like X on a passport or a driver's license?
Later, he does ask about, the passport is later on that interview. This is like a media training clip of like, if you don't want to answer the question or you don't like the question, change it to what you want to talk about. And later on, he actually pivots and he's like, you know what's important? And Pierre just goes off on like affordability and like living in Canada, housing. He pivots completely. So it's like, I think from a media training perspective, he does exactly like, you don't want to answer the question. He didn't say yes or no to the fact that he's like, well, you provide me what you think is the answer. I'm only aware of two. And so I think that he did exactly what he should do.
When he said, I'm not aware of any other genders besides men and women, like, isn't the obvious thing to say, well, what is your position then on transgender? He did something that politicians rarely do, rather than saying, I'm not aware of any, and then pivoting to something else he wants to talk about, which is typically what politicians do. He just let it hang there.
And I don't want to pile on the journalists. There's such a missed opportunity where Poilievre says, I'm only aware of two genders. The correct response, or at least in my opinion, would be, you can't possibly be unaware that there are people who believe there are more than two genders. You can't possibly be unaware of that, Mr. Poilievre.
The one thing I took away from that is I liked that Pierre Poilievre said, I think government should mind their own damn business. If this is how he wants to walk the line in the election, if he wants to like not talk about it, if he wants to say government should mind their business, I think this will actually be a benefit to so many people who have been attacked by conservative governments for political gain in recent elections. And if Pierre Poilievre's position is, I think government should mind their damn business, great. I think that's great for everyone.
100%. But also with Pierre, he could have gave a great answer there. Like, I am aware that there's a debate on gender in this country, but in regards to the U.S., Canada will make its own decisions on what we find socially acceptable. He could have said 100 things.
This is what the conservatives, I think, are so good at, is that and Daniel Smith does this too. He got asked a question, and for those in his base that strongly believe that there are only men and women, he kept them with him by saying, I'm only aware of those two. And for those who say, this isn't my priority, I don't want to talk about this, this is not, why I would come over to your party, he also spoke to them at the same time. And conservatives have become better and better at this as part of their base gets really right wing. Danielle Smith gets asked about chemtrails. She doesn't say they're not real. She doesn't say they're real. She just keeps everybody in the big tent. And Pierre Poilievre is an expert at this. This is such an evolving media era. And if you look at Donald Trump, there was no softening.
Yep.
Like, what actually gets gets people talking about you and voting for you is breaking through what is a ton of noise in the way that people receive information. And the way you do that is sort of by, either having a big personality, saying something wild, doing something crazy. Like the moderate, charming politician is not breaking through anymore.